Natalie Fairfax was the heiress to a billion-dollar empire. Damon Krell was the mysterious dog trainer who gained her trust. And Cole Rilland was the war-hardened bodyguard who sensed something was wrong, but none of them knew that behind the gates of the Fairfax estate a lethal plan was unfolding, one that would turn loyalty into a weapon and a loyal dog into a silent killer. Natalie Fairfax lived behind gates taller than most trees, in a mansion that sprawled across 10 acres of Colorado wilderness. A quiet, brooding man with a military past, Cole didn't speak much, but his presence changed everything. He ran drills with staff, installed hidden cameras, and checked the locks himself every night. He arrived with 2 German shepherds, sleek and well-trained, and soon began working with Natalie's rescue dog, Biscuit. The transformation was immediate. Biscuit, once skittish and aggressive, became obedient and relaxed. Natalie felt lighter, more in control. A camera in the East Corridor blinked off for 2 hours. Just the body of a beloved pet lying still, eyes open, mouth slack. Damon said it was likely a hidden health issue. Natalie sobbed for days. Cole requested a necropsy. The results were inconclusive. A glass door was left open at night. One of the kitchen staff reported hearing footsteps outside the pantry window at 2 a.m. Most cameras were working properly, but one positioned at the rear of the guest house had gone offline during a key window. He checked the logs. It was minor, caught early by the sprinkler system, but enough damage had been done to shut it down for weeks. Investigators ruled it an electrical short. Cole didn't buy it. He examined the burnt wiring himself. The scorch marks were too clean, too symmetrical. It looked staged. The feed had been manually interrupted, not by power loss, but by a remote override. The shepherds that once played in the open lawn now trained quietly in secluded areas of the property. Cole noticed a change in their behavior. When she did interact with Damon, she praised his work and marveled at how Nero, her new dog, seemed protective of her. Nero followed her everywhere, his eyes always alert, his body never relaxed. They weren't just obedient anymore, they were reactive, hyper-aware, trained to track and respond on command. As he recovered in the hospital, he sifted through every interaction with Damon, every unanswered question, and every small inconsistency. The contents chilled him. The drive held hours of surveillance footage from a camera he hadn't installed. Damon introduced objects with Natalie's scent: scarves, a shoe, a pillow. He began pairing these with subtle gestures, sometimes even verbal phrases. Then he introduced stress cues: yelling, loud noises, flashes of light. The dogs, especially Nero, were conditioned to react to these triggers by baring teeth, growling, and eventually attacking padded mannequins dressed in Natalie's clothing. The angle suggested it was placed in the barn that Damon had repurposed as a training center. The footage had clearly been filmed in secret, hidden from both the estate's main system and Damon himself. It all pointed in one direction. Something deeper was unfolding behind the walls of the Fairfax estate. When a plain, unmarked envelope arrived at his hospital room a few days later, postmarked from a nearby town, he knew someone was trying to help. Inside was a flash drive: no note, no return address. As he lay in the hospital bed with broken ribs and a concussion, he realized the accident wasn't a coincidence. It was a warning. One day, he watched from a distance as Damon gave a sharp whistle, and one of the dogs lunged forward toward a scarecrow placed at the end of a trail. On a steep mountain pass, his brakes gave out. The car spun, hitting the guardrail and tumbling halfway down a slope. By some miracle, he survived. When the tow company retrieved the wreckage, they confirmed the brake line had been cleanly severed. The intensity in the attack was unlike anything he had seen outside military K-9 units. Only a few people had access codes that deep: himself, the head groundskeeper, and Damon Krell. Cole took a mental note and didn't say anything yet. It was dismissed as imagination. Then Biscuit was found dead in the backyard. Damon's methods were quiet, structured, precise. Within weeks, he was offered the guest house on the property to stay full-time. Natalie trusted him more than anyone else, including her own family. He noted Damon's presence, watched the way he moved around the estate, and scanned background checks. Everything came back clean to clean. Damon had no criminal record, no lawsuits, no red flags. Still, something felt off. Cole had seen men like him before: controlled, exact, always 3 steps ahead. She had grown up in the shadow of privilege, heiress to the Fairfax farm of fortune, an empire built on over-the-counter cures and billion-dollar patents. At her therapist's recommendation, she brought animals into her life. Enter Damon Krell, a specialist in behavioral dog training who had worked with veterans, trauma survivors, even celebrities. Damon came highly recommended, with a portfolio full of glossy endorsements and videos of obedient canines performing impressive tasks. The staff moved more quietly, conversations were hushed, and Natalie rarely left her bedroom. The loss of her dog hit harder than expected. To her, Biscuit had been a constant companion in a world of shifting loyalties. Damon remained calm, offering comfort and explanations. He told her stress could manifest in pets just as it did in people. Still, Cole wasn't convinced. Something didn't add up. Some warned her to stay silent, others said it runs in the family. Her security team dismissed them as pranks, but Natalie had a gut feeling. Her late father, Richard Fairfax, had died under suspicious circumstances, ruled a suicide. She never believed it. The way he was found cold in his study with a glass of untouched scotch, no note, no warning, never sat right with her. To the world, she was a symbol of beauty, wealth, and effortless charm. But behind the manicured hedges and glass walls, Natalie didn't feel safe. In fact, she hadn't for a long time. It started with strange letters typed with no return address, postmarked from random towns. After the third letter, she fired her security chief and replaced him with Cole Rilland. Still, the anxiety lingered. She couldn't sleep. She flinched at shadows. Natalie was charmed. Damon had a calm energy that made her feel instantly understood. Cole, ever observant, remained neutral. Then small incidents began to occur. There was no sign of injury, no blood, no struggle. No one saw what really happened that night. No one but Damon and maybe the dog. The morning after Biscuit's death, the estate felt different. That same week, Cole reviewed all surveillance footage from the previous 3 days. 2 days later, a fire broke out in the pool house. Damon, once cheerful and engaging, became increasingly distant. He started taking long walks with the dogs, always alone, always at dusk. Natalie didn't see any of this. She had begun taking medication to sleep, prescribed by her family's doctor, and spent more time indoors. Then came the incident on the road. Cole was driving back from a meeting with a local investigator he'd hired privately to look into Damon's credentials. Natalie rushed to his side at the hospital. Damon stayed behind to take care of the estate, a gesture that Natalie appreciated, but Cole saw it differently. The closer he got to the truth, the more dangerous things became. And someone wanted him out of the way. Cole had always trusted his instincts. And now they were screaming. Cole waited until the nurses left before plugging it into his laptop. At first, the recordings showed standard training exercises: sit, stay, fetch. But as the clips continued, the tone shifted. The most disturbing segment showed Damon testing a command sequence, a series of words read from a piece of paper. When he spoke them, Nero's demeanor shifted instantly. Once an executive at the family company, Elaine had been publicly ousted after embezzlement accusations. The fallout destroyed her reputation and removed her from the line of succession, leaving Natalie the sole heir. For years, Elaine had kept a low profile, quietly contesting legal decisions and filing appeals that always failed. The calm dog lunged at the mannequin with such force it knocked it over, biting the neck area repeatedly. A date scribbled on a whiteboard behind Damon's desk. It was circled in red. 2 days from now, something was going to happen. The test wasn't a demonstration of obedience, it was the creation of a weapon. He had told Natalie he was preparing new routines for the dogs, but in truth, he was fine-tuning the final stage of the plan. She claimed it was a peace offering, a bracelet their grandmother once wore, and a handwritten note recalling childhood memories. Natalie was touched, unaware that the note had been carefully crafted. Inside, woven into the lines about summers at the lake and their old treehouse, was a string of words Damon had trained Nero to recognize as a signal. Read aloud, it would command the dog to attack without hesitation. He snatched the note from Elena's hand and threw it into the fireplace before a word could be read aloud. Nero's eyes remained fixed, tense but untriggered. Elaine lunged at Cole, furious, demanding an explanation, but her screams only made Nero more alert. She didn't stand a chance. The very weapon she funded, groomed, and trusted had turned on her. What no one realized was that Nero had been imprinted on Elaine's scent during training far more than anyone else. Elaine's body lay motionless in the drawing room, covered hastily with a linen sheet. Dog turns deadly at Heiress estate, read one. Another called it the Fairfax plot, suggesting this was more than a tragic accident. Surveillance footage showed him boarding a bus with a backpack and a single dog crate. The dog inside was not Nero, but a smaller breed, perhaps another piece in a puzzle that law enforcement feared wasn't over. And it was. Investigators quickly uncovered the forged documents Damon used to infiltrate the estate. Friends said she no longer trusted large homes or large dogs. He refused them all. He opened a private agency focused on identifying psychological threats in domestic security, an effort to prevent what had happened at the Fairfax estate from ever happening again. This was a crime committed with discipline, planning, and silence. A dog, trained not to protect, but to destroy. She withdrew from public life, stopped attending charity events, and handed over her responsibilities at Fairfax Pharma to a private board. And with every story comes the same chilling thought. If one man could train a dog to kill with a word, how many more could be waiting for the signal? The woman who had once graced magazine covers now lived in quiet anonymity, her life forever reshaped by fear. His real identity was unknown. He had been using a fabricated name, fake licenses, and had wiped his digital history. The footage Cole had submitted became the centerpiece of the case, laying out a chilling timeline of psychological manipulation, animal conditioning, and premeditated violence. The house had gone silent except for the low, distant hum of sirens and the occasional bark from a patrol dog outside. Natalie stood in a daze, unable to process what had just happened. Cole, bruised and limping, gave his full statement while officers took photographs and collected evidence. Nero was sedated and taken away by animal control, his fate uncertain. By the time the local authorities arrived, he was already gone, his guest house cleared out, no trace of him left behind. The plan had failed, but the damage was irreversible. The animals were ready. Nero had been trained for this moment for weeks. She had been in severe debt for years, her failed lawsuits draining what little was left of her inheritance. Her partnership with Damon offered one last desperate chance to reclaim power and wealth, but she had underestimated the weapon they created. Nero, loyal only to his training, had done exactly what he was taught without understanding who or why. The plan was to make it look like an unpredictable animal incident. No fingerprints, no forced entry, just a tragic headline, Heiress mauled by family dog. He wouldn't act aggressively unless triggered by a specific set of cues hidden in something as innocent as a greeting or a letter read aloud. Natalie didn't know that the very thing she found comfort in could be her undoing. He bypassed the front gate and entered through a side entrance known only to the original security team. As Elaine sat across from Natalie in the drawing room, preparing to hand her the note, Cole burst in. Startled, Natalie stood up. Nero growled. Nero sat obediently by her feet, alert as ever, eyes following every movement outside. She felt safer with him nearby. Since Damon had placed the dog under her care, Natalie had felt more in control, more grounded. But time was slipping. Her cousin Elaine had called the night before, asking to meet in person, promising peace after years of tension. Natalie, emotionally drained and tired of conflict, agreed. The goal was to eliminate Natalie without leaving a trail. A staged accident, a dog attack, something that could be explained away, buried under public sympathy and private shame. But the footage revealed something even darker. Several segments captured Damon meeting in the barn late at night with another person, Natalie's cousin, Elaine Fairfax. They needed to act fast. Natalie was completely unaware, still trusting Damon, still surrounded by dogs that had been reprogrammed to see her not as their owner but as their target. Now there she was, sitting in the barn with Damon, reviewing documents, exchanging money, and laughing. The plan, Cole realized, was methodical. Elaine provided funding and motive. Damon brought the tools and expertise. Cole transferred the footage to a secure cloud server and reached out to the investigator he had hired. And worst of all, the final footage showed something terrifying. Natalie stood by the window, watching snow drift quietly over the estate grounds. Back at the estate, Damon kept to himself, spending most of the day in the barn. The morning of the meeting, Elaine arrived dressed elegantly, smiling wide and holding a wrapped gift. Damon wasn't present for the meeting. He remained in the shadows, watching from the barn's window, waiting for confirmation. But what none of them accounted for was Cole. He had returned to the estate that morning, injured but driven. Cole didn't hesitate. When she shouted and pushed Cole, the dog reacted. His training took over. With terrifying speed, Nero launched at Elaine, knocking her backward into the marble coffee table. Damon, watching from a distance, vanished. The police arrived within the hour. Over the next few days, the media storm grew. News helicopters circled above the estate. Headlines screamed of betrayal, murder, and madness. Elaine's motives became clear as financial investigators dug deeper. Damon Krell's whereabouts remained a mystery. The last sighting placed him at a bus terminal 60 miles from the estate. Natalie left the estate for good a week later. She sold the property quietly and relocated under a private security program. Cole, hailed as a hero, received offers from across the country to run security teams, consult on high-profile protection cases, and write a book. What lingered most was the unsettling realization that no bullet had been fired, no poison slipped into a drink. Even now, whispers continue online about Damon Krell claims he resurfaces in different cities, offering services to wealthy clients under new names.